What? Excuse me. What are you talking about, child? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? So, I just like randomly got disconnected a minute ago, and I'm not sure why or how, because it said my connection was excellent in OBS, and it said my connection was excellent on YouTube itself, and then it just like it said stream finished, and I'm like, what do you mean? I didn't do anything. Ugh, whatever. Okay, so where we left off, literally 30 seconds ago, is if you plug in an unknown controller and you hit a button, it will offer to map the controller for you. And if you hit no, then it will ignore that controller and subsequent inputs don't do anything. But if you unplug it and plug it back in and then do another input, it will again offer to connect it. If you say yes, it takes you through this process of binding all of the inputs that you would want to bind. That should be Y. That doesn't matter. Start, select L and R. All right, so now, okay, we can move diagonally, so it's like fine. I was worried with the hat that I wouldn't be able to move diagonally, but I can. So that's nice. Our controller works, yippee. I didn't mean to talk to you, Terry. Whatever. So now if we unplug our controller and we plug it back in, then once it actually reconnects, we will load the mapping and we can now use it with the mapping. So anytime the game sees your... Currently we don't save these to a file properly, but we're going to, and so then what will happen when you have the game on your local machine is just any controller you've ever used and mapped, it will just remember. And then in like the options screen, we'll have to add an option for you to remap a controller or delete a mapping for a controller. But in the general case, you will just be able to plug your controller in and it will load a mapping and let you go ham. So that's cool. Where is this being printed from? What? What? Where are the hats? Because there are hats in there. What are you talking about? Maybe on this controller the D-pad is buttons. Let me try my Xbox controller where I know that it is in fact a hat. So Xbox controller plugged in, press a button or not. Oh, there it is. Yes, I would like to go and do that. And we're binding. And now we're bound and we can play. Okay. Give me that. Alright, so now I'll unplug this controller and then I'll plug it back in. It'll print out the mapping, I think, whenever it decides to connect, and it sure did. So there's that stuff. And it works. And we can go look at the mapping here and see. Ain't bad. Not too complicated. Ah, Lord. A family member is texting me saying, "Can you call my phone? I don't know if it's ringing right." Yes, it is. It's fine. I promise it is. But I'm going to have to check on them real quick. One moment, please. Okay, so like I don't even know when the previous stream actually died. Is there a way, is there like a hotkey that hits the end stream button or something? Like I have no idea. Um Hang on, I'm quickly going to post about the stream. Copy video URL. My stream randomly died. All right. Okay, so next order of business is we don't want to allow duplicate inputs. So if we run the game and we say, yeah, sure, I'm just going to map all of these to the A button. And it will just allow me to do that. And then whenever the game actually starts, hitting the A button should do something crazy. Okay. So I hit attack and I hit pause at the same time. World's easiest pause buffer. Okay. Oh man, I had to sneeze and I panicked. But yeah, so as you can see, it'll just let you map everything to everything, and it's a little bit smelly. So one other thing that we need to do in here is for setting the input source, you'll notice, which I'm gonna have to remap it. Never mind. So the inputs in the game show different letters depending on if you're using a gamepad or keyboard. If you're using a keyboard, it just shows you the keyboard key to use. If you're using a gamepad, it shows you what to hit in like Nintendo layout, because it's a Nintendo layout game. And what that means is if you have a controller like my Xbox controller where the control stick is loose, it's just kind of spamming access events all the time. And so what that means is the last input source gets set at times where it maybe shouldn't. So let's see, was mapped. Okay, that's the trick. So this, that is not the right part of that file. Are you high right now? What? Okay. So we need to only return true if it's actually mapped. So this, that is not the case. That is not the case. We need to do this. And now we'll say result equals process input. Result equals process input. Result equals false. Result equals process input. Result is already false. We don't need to do that. And then we need to go and change process input to return a bool. And so what we'll do is we'll say if we're mapped, result will be true. And otherwise it won't. So we only consider it to be valid gamepad input if it was mapped. And actually, no, we should put it on, maybe that'll be fine. Where's my error? Right. My phone is blowing up today, Jesus. Okay, yes, we would like to map it. Let's go and map L controller. And It shouldn't matter if we're moving the mouse, right? Yeah. So we'll map our controller real quick. And then now we're in the game and we show the buttons, and oh dear, I moved my thumb away. That's my mistake. So now if I use the arrow keys, oh, what the heck? Why is it just like instantly changing back? That's not good. You can see the button prompts are like flickering over there. They shouldn't be. I'm not sure why they are. Do we set this anywhere else? Mouse, keyboard, gamepad. No, we do not. So, what weird circumstance are we returning true here? Joy hat motion. We need to get rid of that one. Okay. So it's only coming from process input at this point. And we only set result to true here. Oh. Oh, okay. Yeah. So in map event, we only need to set the result to true if the thing was actually mapped. If you hit some random button, we shouldn't care. Actually, we could set it true for any button or any hat motion, but we shouldn't set it true for axis motion unless it's mapped. To do actual logic, and then to do set, I'll say result equals true if it's a mapped axis and a large enough input. Okay. All right, so we'll map the controller. La-di-da-di-da. Okay, so now we're mapped. And we show the controller buttons on the right. And then if I switch to arrow keys, it actually works correctly. Okay, and if I move the axis, if I move the control stick, it does not matter, which is what we wanted. Cool. I need to get a heart so that this will shut up. Okay. All right, so now what's next? Next thing, duplicate inputs are a problem, as we were talking about before. So we need to, when you are mapping a button, we need to detect if that button is already in use. And if it is, we need to complain. So we might just add a helper here for that. So we might say, well, didn't mean to do that. Button is bound. I'll say input. I'll say is input bound. And say prompt is input bound. And we'll take an event, and then what we will do is similar to map input. Map event, rather. We'll do the same kind of maneuver here. So instead of doing that, we will say result equals true. And here we will say, get rid of that. Say result equals true. No, will we though? No, because we need to see if the hat value is the thing. So we'll say result equals that. If the hat value matches, it's already mapped. If the button index matches, it's already mapped. And then we've got the other types. And what is the issue? Wrong number of variables. Oh, right. Yeah, crap. Oh, so for that, for the mapping we want the prompt mapping. That's what we want. And this is going to be a bool. So all right. Let's see. Okay. So what we need to do then over here is whenever we start holding a button, if it's already taken, we need to acknowledge that. So and then what we'll do is I'll say let event equals gamepad. Event, and so then we'll say if not gamepad, what the heck was it called? Prompt is input bound. If that is not already bound, which actually we could just check that over there, but whatever, we can organize this piece by piece. If it is not already bound, else to do prompt to restart or something. Which we could just not let you do it if it's let's see what that looks like. Would you like to use it? Yes. And I'm holding the left, and now I'm gonna still hold the left again, and nothing happens. Okay. Oh, but now I can hold the right one again. That's not good. So now I can't hold, it's only checking the previous thing. That's odd. I shouldn't be able to do any of these. Hang on. We should early out here for one thing. Return true. And then if this return true. I think that should actually fix it. Would you like to use it? Sure. So I'm holding right. We bound it. I'm holding right. It doesn't work. I'm holding down. It does work. Bound it. Holding right. It doesn't work. Holding down. It doesn't work. Holding left. Okay, cool. So that prevents us doing duplicate inputs, which is nice. Although holding the B button, that suddenly doesn't work, which is not normal. Yes. Why is the B button not working anymore? That is freaking weird, man. It's not taken, is it? It's button 0. Is it because it's button 0 that it's a problem? Can I use it for the first input even? I sure can't. Now, why would that be? Hmm. Doi. Yeah. I added that whole field and then didn't even remember to use it. Big brain hours. Yes, I would like to map it. And now the 0th button works. But I can't do duplicates, which is nice. Wait a minute, you. Oh, no, that's interesting. So hang on. That's 2, that's 4, that's 8, that's 1. And then if I do, yeah, it's 6, 8, 9. Oh, that stinks. Okay, so that's a problem. The diagonals on the hat are a different input value, which means I can map them to these other things. So I'm going to screw up the attack button and stuff now. And we'll see how goofy it is. Yeah, that's not great. Eesh. So wait. So hang on. When I was walking diagonally before, how were we doing that? Left, right. How was I doing that? Like, I was walking diagonally with no problem a minute ago. Maybe that was with the other controller. So here on the Xbox controller, the diagonals have their own value, which is probably just bit flags. Ord would be my guess. But if I go to my third-party GameCube controller and I bind it, I am anticipating. Yeah, it doesn't do that. Because this one's not a hat. Each D-pad direction is a separate button on this one. So this one must be the one where I was moving diagonally. Yep. Okay. So, for the hats, we need to fix the hats. And let's see. Okay, so these are enum values. So, are they bit flags though? Or do I just need to make a switch of these freaking things? What this means is we either need to do some bit ops for this, or we need to do let's see, so we've got fix hat motion overlaps, and then we also have add escape to cancel binding. Okay. Hold a button to restart binding, question mark. Actually, no. We'll put prompt to restart on escape. Prompt to restart. Okay. So let's go find this and see where it lives. Which one is this? That's not the one we want. We want this one because it's our copy of SDL. Okay. So these are just C ints, and they are, in fact, binary flags. Okay. So we probably need to disallow diagonal inputs in the actual binding. And then we also probably want to, when we get one of these coming in, we want to split it up and check both when we're like taking actual inputs. Because we want you to be able to walk diagonally. So let's see, prompt last press equals prompt buttons. If it's joy hat motion, right. So we need to change this. Is press event, which we only use that for mapping. So we could change this, but we could change this to only consider J-hat values that are like a single direction. That would be an option. But that feels a little bit hinky to me. So let's just do it in here. So we'll say var should var isn't var not diagonal, or well, say var diagonal equals if e kind equals joy hat motion, else false. And then in here we'll just say if e j hat value in, and then we'll have crap, where'd it go? So we'll grab those. So if it's not one of these diagonals, then we want to consider it. So if it's not a diagonal, say if actually we'll just do this. And it's diagonal, so we'll say if not diagonal, then we'll do all this. So now if we do this, we shouldn't be able to bind a diagonal, which should help. Yes. So I can bind a single one. That sure looks diagonal to me. What? Why is that possible? You shouldn't be able to do that. I don't even know what value that was. Okay, well. So, yeah, they're like totally bogus. You shouldn't be able to bind a diagonal at all with this. What's the problem? Int 32 is too big. Oh no. Well, fine. Are you happy? Are you happy with what you've wrought? Is this what you wanted? What's the problem with that? Yeah, I know. I'm not the one who made them these random types. Hmm. It is really funny coming from C to other languages and being like, oh, I really take like type promotion for granted a lot of times. And it is also the case that like you end up with like bugs because of automatic type promotion. But okay, so now, nope, I can still do it. So what? Are you serious right now? So down is 4, this is 2, this is 1, this is 8. And what is down left? Down left is 6, which is 2 plus 4, which makes sense. But why is it still allowed? We shouldn't even be setting it in here. We shouldn't even be setting it. So, what the heck, man? Where is my mistake? Herb-de-burb-de-bur. What is this actual value again? Right or up, for example, which is 3, right? So down left should be, so that's 8, or sorry, down right. So that's 2 plus 4, which is 6. What is the problem? That's just it, Jenkins. That is the problem. There shouldn't be anything weird happening from our cast, I don't think. Why is it allowing me to bind 6? That doesn't make, or 12 for that matter. Is it because there's no release event? Is that the actual trick? Because if I try to hit 12, it takes a little finesse, right? And it usually I press the other ones first. Is that the issue? Is release event. Okay. Maybe if it's a joy hat motion, we just always consider it a release event. And then we actually address that. If it's joy hat motion and the hat matches and e j hat value doesn't equal prompt last press j hat value. That's the trick. Maybe. So I'll hit a button and I'll say yes. And nope, it still lets me freaking do it. So, what the heck, man? It should not let me bind 12. It really should not let me bind any of these weird values. And yet. Yeah, very screwed up. So, I'm not sure, honestly. Diagonal j hat. Okay, so let's say if e kind equals joy, print diagonal e, and then let's just print right down and see what it says. Okay. Would you like to do the thing? Yeah, sure. So, oh, duh. I can't just pass that in. I need to do that. So we get nice logs. Nice big logs. All right. So, okay. So here we've got our game. We've got our thing. So if I hit to the right, the value is 2. Diagonal is false. It's the first joystick, the 0th hat, the value is 2, right? If I hit down, the value is 4, still not diagonal, and now if I hit both of these, the value is 6, diagonal is true. But we only do this if we're not diagonal. Is it that we need to treat it as a release event if it's diagonal? Maybe that's what it is. Okay, so actually, I'm going to change how this is structured a little bit. So I'm going to say if eKind equals joy button down. So then that'll be the press event for the button. So we'll just grab all this stuff and we'll do it here. If it's a button down, we'll set the press and we'll set the time step to the button time step, and the rest of this crap goes away. Elif eKind is joy button up. Then we do the release stuff. We do the release things. Okay, then we need to check that. Okay, so we need to do this whole thing. So we do this whole thing. So if it's a joy button down, we do that. if it's a joy button up, we check and do this. Elif joy hat motion. This is all special case time. So now for hat motion, we're doing extra stuff. So, first of all, we're going to go and check if it's diagonal. And if it's not diagonal, then now we need to determine if it should be considered a press or a release or both. That's the trick. So as I check for previous hat event, say if prompt last press kind equals joy hat motion, and then down here we'll also have check for new hat event caress. So if the previous event is hat motion, we'll check if the value changed. Equals prompt press J hat value. We also need to check if the hat is the same. So it'll be E J hat hat equals prompt last press J hat hat. So say if this doesn't equal that, or if that doesn't equal that. So in either of those cases, we know that it's changed, right? So if it changed, then we need to consider it a release. So say release the old input. So we'll say that there. None of that's the case. Find hat released, right? And then what we need to do is what's the complaint with this? It is used now. So then what we need to do is we also need to check for a new press. So this should cover all cases, I believe. Well, diagonal should count for a release, but it shouldn't count for a press. That's the trick. Well, frag proof in C, it's really simple because you just do a bit flag comparison, and we could do the same in nim. Actually, the only issue for me is just because I'm doing this binding system, I just need to have logic to handle all the cases. And so where I'm trying to say, are you pressing one isolated input on the controller, I have to like differentiate these other cases. So actually in this case, we don't care if it's diagonal or not. We only care if it changed. So we just care that the value is different. And then in this case, we do care if it's diagonal to detect a press. So if not diagonal, my dog wants outside again. I will be right back. Ugh. Okay, so if it's not diagonal, we can consider it a press. So we'll get the same stuff in here from before. We'll store the event and we'll set the time step. We know that it's hat motion, so we can skip all of that. So process input. If we're in the buttons prompt, then if it's a joy button down, if it's a joy button up, if it's a joy hat motion, we have some special cases. And that should be correct, I think. That should be right, I believe. So let's try this. Yes, I would like to use it. So if I hold a single button, that works. If I hold a diagonal, it does not work. That's what we want. Now, if you have a flaky D-pad on your controller that registers diagonals when it shouldn't, it might be a problem. And we can't use any prior inputs, and we can't use any diagonals. That's what we want. Can't do any of these. Okay, we're in good shape. Cool. All right, so with this, we can now use controllers and have them actually work, which is nice. That's what we wanted. Next thing is we need to write our controller mappings out to a file. So I'm gonna get rid of all this old code. Okay. And then what we need to do is in finalize binding, have needs save equals true. And oh my god, it just breaks. Like it just constantly breaks. All right. Almost nothing in my game uses globals like this, but I don't know. I've reached a point where I'm like, it makes sense for this system. I don't really care. I didn't do this for the input system. It's all just like objects that get initialized, and it's kind of worse for it, honestly. But I wrote it when I was just barely learning Nim, so it's a little bit obnoxious. I need to refactor it. Okay. So I don't think, where do we even use that anymore? Oh, that's a little bit sketchy. But that works for our purposes, so. What the heck is going on? These can be moved in here. Up. Let's see. Where's my... Yeah. I mean, we could just do it when we finalize the mapping. If it fails, we might want to do something special, but... Okay, so... Couldn't save controller mappings. All right, so that should mean that now if I boot this up, da 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 da. Yes, I would like to bind it. I'll go and bind my controller. Easy peasy. Now my Xbox controller is bound, and now if I stop and start the game, it should still be bound, and it is. So that's cool. One thing I also need to do is, so we fixed the hat motion overlaps. We saved the file. We need to move mappings file to save data directory. So currently, I'm just saving this file in the working directory because that's the easiest thing for testing, right? But what we need to do is we need to go and let's see, I'm looking for what the save file is called. Well, I could just open it here, couldn't I? But I don't remember who gets that path. Okay, this is not. Let me go up here. I'm gonna turn off some of this logging real quick. Boot up the game. La-di-da. There's still gonna be a bunch of logging actually, but there will be less. Okay, so we come up here, logger started, save file dir. Who is writing that? Save file is get save file directory. Okay, and that is in, what is get appdir doing? Is that SDL's? No, it's the OS. Okay. That's not where I thought I'd... it's fine, forget it. I thought I was doing app data already, but I guess I'm not. Get save file path. Well, I mean, I guess for now we could leave it where it is. But I need to write that. Okay, I've already got a to-do here for it, so... Cool. That'll be fine then. I do want to bind control sticks, which will be substantially different. We don't need any of this crap. Old sketches. Don't need this either. We do want to keep this because this is all the stuff I was doing for 8 directional movement for joystick, for control sticks before, so we'll keep that for the moment. I'm not really sure what we should do in cases like if you connect a controller that doesn't have enough buttons, what should we do with that? Because like I don't really know how like I know there are special controllers for people with disabilities, for example, and I don't really know how those work. So I don't know if it's you have one controller that has just like inputs that are like specific to what you're able to physically press, or if it's like here are a bunch of peripheral devices that you use for different inputs, for example. I guess my question is I don't know if I should allow you to map a controller that has fewer buttons than the game does. That way you could map one controller for some inputs and one controller for another input. Or like even just allow partially mapped controllers even if like let's say I have an Xbox controller that has enough buttons to play the game, but maybe I only want to bind the A button or something. That's a stupid example, but I don't know, you get what I mean, right? Like if you had some USB device that's like a big giant button that you can hit with your elbow or something, you might have a different USB device that's another big giant button and you want to map those to different buttons. I don't know if that's how that sort of thing tends to go. And I don't know if I can easily find information. Game controllers for the, oh, we're actually not done. Game controllers for physical disabilities. Okay, we're gonna look at these and see what we can see, and I might buy something if it's not like $300 so that I can try it out. But I forgot, we're not actually done. We need pull out overlapped hat inputs. So if I run this, I shouldn't be able to walk diagonally, I don't think, currently, and I need to fix that. Yeah, I can't move diagonally. And in fact, if I try to move diagonally, I just don't move. So I need to fix that in the actual, yeah, so I can test with two controllers connected. So I actually currently have two controllers connected, and I can just use either one to do inputs to the game. So let me run it again real quick. So right now I'm moving with my Xbox controller, and then right now, oop, it's not mapped. I was going to say right now I'm moving with my GameCube controller, but it's not mapped. But so the way it is, where it's a single player game, you can connect as many controllers as you want, and if it will ask you to map them once you do an input on that controller. So if no inputs come in, it won't prompt you. But and if an input does come in, it'll prompt you to map the controller. And once a controller is mapped, you can just use it. So like I could have 10 controllers hooked up and just randomly swap between them to control the game, and it's no problem. The thing I'm wondering about is like if you have I'm wondering if I should, currently the mapping will only let you do the whole controller. It'll only let you do every input that the game requires. And so I'm wondering if I should let you do like two of the game inputs or one game input and then say, hey, I'm done, save this. And then you'd have a controller, like if you had a big USB button that was just one button, you could map it to the A button and then you could just hit it, right? And it would be considered like its own mapping. And like that's really just a UI question, because I could just let you commit an incomplete controller. So I'll consider that. I'll write that down. Allow saving an incomplete mapping with an "Are you sure?" prompt for special input devices. That seems like it should be pretty simple to do. And then if you, well, you'd also need to be able to skip specific buttons. Requires being able to skip some buttons. So that's something we'll have to consider too. But aside from that, let's fix these diagonal inputs real quick. So finalize binding, bind button, where is it? Process input, map event, here we go. So if that's the case, how do you do a binary and in nim? Bit ops, okay. So let's, okay. So instead of this, we're going to do a binary and I'm going to guess it's like bit and or something. Bit and. Is that right? Is that allowed? No, it's not. What is it then? I saw bit not. I thought that's what it would be. Is it because I'm trying to use it as an operator and that's not allowed? Has no type or ambiguous. Well, gee, thanks. Thanks, buddy. Which actually, I think maybe the and is just allowed. Oh my god, it is. Okay. And where is that? It's in arithmetic. Okay, so it's just allowed. I don't even need to do... I don't even need this. It's just fine. But then again, maybe not. What was that called? Arithmetics? Do I have to have bit ops to use it? No, it still doesn't. Arithmetics. No. Where the heck was that defined? Where did it even find that? Like, squeeze me. Where is this? System. Okay. What? Okay, I think maybe I'm not supposed to be importing that. Excuse me. Bit and. Yeah. And what's the problem with that? Are they different types? Is that the problem? Where did it go? Where did it go? Ah. This one is an int, and this one is an int. Is it because I'm calling it like that? Oh, duh. I need to cast this to a bool. Yeah. Nope, maybe not. What the heck? Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay, so now, in theory, pick up my Xbox controller, and I can walk diagonally. Okay, excellent. Alright, so we're in good shape. Okay, so that's done. What else? Let's see. If you're doing a binding, we should maybe let you... Let's see. If we want to, let's look at some of these special input devices real quick. Okay. Access controller. So there are ones like this for a specific console. Well, these pictures suck. Where it looks like it maps it to a regular controller for you, which is interesting. And then there are a bunch of different devices. Wasn't Microsoft coming out with a collection of different like doodads that you could hook up? Did they ever release those? I don't know. Yeah, this whole deal with like, oh, that's 3D printed. But Microsoft was coming out with a thing where it was like, here's like a modular deal where it's like one button and one joystick and all this stuff you can hook up. That's pretty cool, actually. That's really cool. So, what's going on there? I don't know. So there's all these different controllers. It looks like all of these are kind of self-contained, where it's like, here's a whole device that maps to an entire controller. And I guess that's because most games do require you to use a single controller. My game might be a little bit unusual in letting you connect multiple controllers. Yeah, I'm very open to suggestions for the record. And yeah, making those circles might be a little bit clearer. Currently, this is all like crappy programmer art. Um, I'm going to do an art pass on this where I actually show like I actually have a drawing of a controller and show the buttons. And I'm gonna probably have little labels like primary item, secondary item, movement, um, things like that. And I could even do something cute like, well, this button is highlighted, and so whenever I could like show a little character walking to the right here with an arrow, for example, and then when it goes to the next one, I could show her walking down. Um, just so it's like it would be clear here's what each action is for. So like instead of rectangles, it would be actual sprites, and then instead of just being in a vacuum, it would like show the action somehow. It would either say what it is or it would show a little animation for it. And I think that'll make it like hopefully pretty straightforward. But yeah, I totally agree with you. At present, it's very it's it's very ugly and not conveying much information. You just have to know what a SNES controller looks like to get any like to recognize this. It is kind of it's an interesting exercise to be like, well, I'm making this love letter to a very specific era in video games, but I want people to be able to play it without having to ask their parents, uh, what do these random letters mean? Or like what what is this layout? What is this? What is that? Why does it keep calling this the A button when I have an Xbox controller, etc.? Um, which I even one of the things that I was considering, I'm in the wrong neighborhood. Where is this? One of the things I even considered with the UI was even the UI in game, instead of showing input names for a gamepad, I'd considered showing like little highlighted things like this, but I just feel like it doesn't really fit the vibe of the game. I really like having the letters written there a lot more. So I don't know. I could maybe make that an option, but I don't know. I'm very picky. I'm very, very picky about things. Um, all right. So what are we doing? Something else is like whenever we pop this up, um, yeah, I saw that article about the kids wanting to touch the game or whatever, and it was a game with controllers. And I get it, right? And it's like, oh, we should all be like, I don't know, people interpret that article differently. Some people are like, see, you should get with the times and make every game touchscreen, or like, oh, it doesn't matter that your game's not touchscreen. People won't care about it because it's not like a mobile whatever. And I like, I don't know, I feel like that's a very cynical, like pessimistic view. Like video games span a really wide breadth of possibilities, and like I personally haven't played a mobile phone game since 2011 because they just didn't really speak to me, you know? And I'm sure there are some mobile phone games that are art, and there are games you can play on mobile like web games that I think are significant or interesting, but for me, I really like a more tactile experience, you know? And it's like, I don't know, the way some people react to that article is weird. It's like, I don't know, it's like if you handed a kid like a really dense adult novel and they were like, oh my God, the kid asked why there were no pictures like his comic books. What are we gonna do? The industry, oh my God. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, there's room for both. Lots of people read comic books and lots of people read novels. Like, it's not, I don't know. It's just weird. Sometimes in games, there's like this weird attitude where it's like, well, if literally every person doesn't like your game, it's a failure. Like, your game is allowed to have a specific audience. We're not all vying for the same attention. Obviously, if you're making a Roblox, Metaverse, Minecraft, Fortnite clone ripoff thing, then you are vying for a large audience that is already somebody else's, and you are competing with a lot of people. But if you're trying to make something that isn't whatever the current gold rush is, it's kind of irrelevant, I guess, at least to me. And I don't know, it's also interesting because lots and lots of young people are fascinated with older stuff and older style stuff. So like, and even things that even things that I would think would not become cult classics have become cult classics. Like there are some indie games that I really don't like. Um, that are just extremely popular because they have a certain appeal to a certain audience, and like that's valid, right? Who am I to say that you're not allowed to enjoy Y2K or whatever? um so I don't know, it just, some of the panic about the, oh my god, the kids think everything should be touchscreen article was like weird to me. um and like I personally, I'm not worried about it at all, like not even the tiniest bit. um I don't know. For me, if I'm using a touchscreen, it's either because I'm doing art or I'm in the bathroom on my phone. Those are the two times, or no, or I'm at Taco Bell. Those are the three times that I use a touchscreen. And the rest of the time, if I can avoid a touchscreen, I will, because it's just not satisfying for me to just like, I don't know, be casting spells on this pane of glass. I much prefer tactile, physical things. Like it's super weird to me that people put touch screens in the car now, because I'm like, in the car I want to be able to touch the car and interact with the car by touch without looking at it. Like if I'm changing the radio station in my car, I do that without looking because I can feel the buttons, right? And if it was a touch screen, I would have to look away from the road to do that. And so like, I don't know. There's just weird things are weird to me. Lots and lots of things are weird to me. But let's see. So what was I doing in here? I was doing a something. Right. I wanted to make it so that if you are binding the controller, you could press a button to skip it. And something else is, when this prompt comes up, if you have a controller plugged in that is allowed, you should be able to maybe navigate that yes no menu using that controller. And right now I don't think you can. So like if I pop this up, push a button, whoops, that one's mapped, push a button. So I can do this with the keyboard. I don't think I can do it with my mapped controller though. No, I cannot. That's not normal. So why is that? But up. Menu select. Right. Well, this should count. This should be counting both of those things. So what gives? What? Okay. So there's for the mouse button. Right. There's for the keyboard. And then there's for the gamepad. And then there's for the keyboard. So what gives? All right, so I'm not actually sure. Is it because when the prompt is open, we ignore input? I bet that's what it is. So we go to process. No, what is it called? Crap. Hang on. Ah, okay. So that's why. Maybe we should put this first. So we should say if there's already a mapping, we use that mapping. If I could type, that would be fantastic. Okay, so if the joystick's not ignored and there's a mapping, we map it if we need to do the prompt. Otherwise, if we don't need to do the prompt. That looks good. So now, if we summon the controls mapper, there it is. I should be able to navigate this menu with my other controller that's already bound, and I can. Then I can hit A, and it'll go to map the controller. But you will notice that this controller's inputs cannot be bound because it's not the controller that needs to be mapped. This one is. All right. So we're in shape. So we got that fixed. So now we need to have like, I keep closing this prematurely. So now what we would need to do, of course we hit no, we can ignore it. If we hit yes, in here we should let you back out. So we could maybe have a keyboard key you can hold to like cancel it or something. Yeah, Rogren says, I think one of the best implementations of controller remapping I've seen is in the Yakuza games. They let you remap literally everything. That's really cool. Yeah, letting the user determine the symbols is something I'm kind of on the fence about for this game, just because it's like, I don't know, because the game is pixel rendered, that does put some limitations on how I can depict things and have it look good and have it like be cohesive, right? And so currently I just show ABXY for a gamepad and I show that in Nintendo layout. But if you like, the way it'll work is there'll be a pause menu and like you could just go look at the controls, and what it would do is show you a controller and it would show your current inputs on the controller, but the visual controller would be Nintendo layout, so it would be telling you, hey, you're pushing the rightmost face button, that's the A button in this game, right? Which is jump, and B is mapped to the cane right now, right? So, I don't know. Oh, if you hit no, it will ignore that controller for the rest of the, so if I pull it up, this is, I just hit the A button on a GameCube controller I have plugged in. If I go and hit no, then I can spam inputs on this GameCube controller and it will ignore it. The thing is, if I unplug it, so I just unplugged it, if I disconnect and reconnect the controller and then hit a button again, it will ask me again. So if you hit no, it will just ignore that controller and like for the rest of the play session unless you disconnect and reconnect it. And that's just because maybe you have multiple controllers plugged into your machine. Maybe one of them is under a book on your desk and it's like holding a button down and you just want to ignore that one, for example. And you know, you might have other controllers connected that you want to actually use. So the next order of business is I want to add a way to cancel out of this. Hi, Digital Monkey Master. Thanks. I'm doing pretty well. I'm off work for a few days, and I've spent most of it so far hiking and working on this game, which is very nice. And we discovered that we can have a Taco Bell date for like $10 depending on what we order. So I don't know. That's what McDonald's used to cost a decade ago. So probably gonna end up getting some Taco Bell if I had to guess. Yeah, exactly. Frag proof. I can't talk today. Frag proof. That's kind of the whole reason for that is just so, you know, you might have something connected, it might count as a joystick, it might be sending inputs, and you can just say, ignore that. I don't care that my like 8-bit do 0 is under something somewhere in the room and it's sending inputs, just ignore it. So like that's one, or is it Nano? Zero? Nano? I want to say it's 0. Am I thinking about Raspberry Pi? Let's see. It is called, no, it is called 0. Okay, I'm not crazy. But yeah, you might want to ignore that. And then you might have another controller you care about. So when we're in this state, we want to give you the option to bail out of binding. And then we might go ahead and do the partial binding thing, but I don't know. I need to make friends with people that have like physical disabilities that use special controllers, because looking online, a lot of them are like $100, so I can't just go buy them all to test them myself. Um, but yeah, I could let you choose the symbols for common controllers, so I could be like, you can either pick, I don't know, or it could be whenever you bind a button, it would pop up a little dialogue of like several symbols you could choose for it, and it would have the standard like platform specific controller ones in it. Um, so it would just have like, it would just be like A, B, X, Y, and then like triangle, circle, X, and square, and just let you like pick one. I don't know. Hmm. Might have to play with it some to find something nice. But so let's let you cancel out of this. And sorry, I'm reorganizing my stream agenda off screen briefly. Okay. So if we're in this state, if we are mapping, we want to listen for a particular input. Sorry, my phone keeps vibrating in my pocket. All right, have a good day at work, Fragproof. How have you been doing, Digital Monkey Master? So we'll have check for bail. So let's have if context input. Do I have like a back or something in here already? I don't. I could just specifically check for escape. Key escape. Down. And then, well, first of all, actually what we should do is we should go down here and draw, and we should put I'm very mature, can you tell? Tell me better. Oh, nice. Yeah, I forgot you were going to Vegas. I hope you have a great time. Let's see. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a brain fart. I've been doing this for a little while today. I should probably go walk around outside when this is over. Let's see. So we need to also draw some text. So block. Let message equals hold escape to cancel. Something like that. And I'll say font draw GUI. And where should I put that? I don't know. Let's see if that looks stupid. It probably will. Yeah, well, with the new system in here, you can use any arbitrary controller. But yeah, I wouldn't want to have like 30 icons in there or something. Say yes. Okay, I need to put that somewhere else, like maybe at the bottom. Yeah, we'll put it at the bottom. I don't know. Do 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 do. Yes. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Oh, it's in front of the progress bar. That's not good. Which I could make the progress bar be like the whole bottom of the screen. That's not awful. Or I could make it like the right side of the screen and fill up vertically. Or I could make it a tiny progress bar that's like next to the button you're doing, but that's a bunch of extra effort. I don't know. Ooh, my bad. Sorry if that was really loud. Where's that progress bar? Yeah, maybe we should change this. Excuse me. Let's see how that looks. It might look stupid. I didn't mean to open this. If I hold a button, yeah, it's even worse, actually. Okay, let's leave that alone. Actually, let's just leave that alone completely. And then maybe we'll move this down lower, although now this will be very low on the screen. In the common case, probably fine. Which we could only show the hold escape to cancel if the progress bar isn't there. That's an option. We'll do that. So we'll say if not self-active. So now, if we boot her up, say yes. So now if we're holding an input, that'll just disappear. So we're fine. And then we'll want to actually detect that you're holding escape and pop up a thing that's like, are you sure you want to cancel binding this controller? So then here in tick, if input is not active, escape down held for, I don't know, 60. Let's do 45. If we've held it down for 45 frames or 3/4 of a second, then we'll maybe change the thing. So say self state equals state prompt restart, and self timer is 0, and then in state prompt restart, then what we'll do the same interact delay as before, and do the same thing, except instead of state, if you want to cancel, then we'll go to state none, and I need to go and make this, like, I need to make a procedure that does the right thing to, like, summon and dismiss the mapper. You have the you have the wired Titan sub controller. That's really funny. I I thought about ordering one of those just for the memes. And then they got really expensive because after that happened, everybody went and bought that controller seemingly. So I haven't bought one yet. I saw them on sale at one point and thought about it, but I was like, do I really want to spend my money on this? Nah. But maybe at some point I will buy one just to have it. I do like the early 2000s vibe that it has, aside from the memeing. State mapping. What happens when we go to state mapping? Mm. We could say cancel and ignore this controller. Hang on. So we'll do that in this case. Otherwise, we will do that. Well, it doesn't seem like we do anything crazy there. And then what we do need to do is we need to say like gamepad reset prompt mapping, something like this. Something like that. What was that called? Right. Okay. All these names are like so random, and I need to just actually let's say shoo. I had to sneeze and couldn't oh, you just happened to have that controller already. That's really funny. Yeah, the 8-bit Do Pro 2 is really nice. I have one of those on my desk um, for testing right now, actually. Um, so let's see. So we'll do that, and that should work. And then we need to actually do the visuals. So we'll come down here to this, and so we'll say cancel mapping and ignore this controller. And yes, and then we'll have restart. Okay, let's see what that do, if it do anything. Okay, so if I pick up my controller, press A, would you like to use it? Yes. And then if I hold escape, cancel mapping and ignore this controller. If I hit restart, okay, well let me, oh dear, yeah, whoopsie. Okay, yeah, okay, yeah, I shouldn't reset it. I should do that. Yeah, the Pro 2 is really nice. I really like I really like it a lot. It's kind of the best of both worlds between like a DualShock and a SNES controller. It's very nice. Would you like to use it? Yes. And I'll find a couple inputs here real quick. And then I'll hold escape to cancel. Cancel mapping and ignore this controller. Restart. It didn't restart. That's not right. Oh, and it like unpaused the game. We don't like that. What the heck? We don't like that at all. Yeah, I should take that out of there. Okay. Let's try this again. Like to bind it? Yes. Bind a couple buttons. Then I'll hold escape. Would you like to cancel mapping? Restart? It's still not... Oh, right, because I need to reset the index. What is it called? Bind new button equals game button low. That's what it is, I think. Okay. Press button. Yes. Bind these. Hold escape. Restart. And we've restarted. Hold escape. Oh, I should reset which one you've selected. Ignore it. Sure. And now we've ignored it. Now I can unplug it and plug it back in. Oh, so Rogue Ren says, if you can tell the game to ignore a controller, how do you tell it to unignore it? So currently the way it works is if you say no there and it ignores the controller, then what you can do is disconnect the controller and reconnect it. And then the way it works is if there's an unrecognized controller connected and you press an input, then it will offer to map it for you. So if you choose to ignore it, then it'll ignore it for the rest of the play session unless you disconnect and reconnect it. So we'll say yes. Now what happens during the middle of this if I disconnect it? I probably need to fix something. Right, it's just going to go on forever and there's nothing it can do. So we should detect that. Okay, so we've got pressing escape to cancel the binding. We prompt to restart. So now we need to handle if the controller disconnects mid-binding. So what we'll do there is just pop up a thing that's like, oh, the controller disconnected. And then we'll just return you to the game. I need to run to the bathroom for a second, and I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. So let's see. Rogren says, how would that work with wireless controllers? So currently, the way it would work is if your wireless controller ran out of, like if you ignored a wireless controller, then uh, it would just be on and ignored. um, sorry, I'm opening a pipeline punch here. So if I called close on the joystick in SDL, I don't know if that would turn off the wireless controller or not. I can check that. I will write that down because in that case, when you ignore something, we'd want to just close it. So I'll write that down. Test with wireless controllers. Does closing the joystick turn it off? It might not, I don't know. The other thing with that is, if your controller, because yeah, once you ignore it, it's ignored until it disconnects and reconnects. And typically with a wireless controller, you can't do that on the controller. Typically you'd open your Bluetooth menu on your machine and disconnect it manually that way. And that usually does turn it off. And then if it turned on and reconnected again, then the next input we would offer you to use it. There's another subtlety here, which is if a controller is known to the game, if a controller is mapped, then you can always send inputs with it. So maybe you've mapped 3 different controllers, one of them is plugged in, and another one is plugged in, and one of them is under your desk being mashed on by a cat or something. We should maybe always pop up the prompt, do you want to use it? Yes. And then if it's mapped, we connect it. And if it's not mapped, we prompt you to map it. So currently the way it works is I've mapped my Xbox controller so I can just launch the game and use it. And it's fine. But I haven't mapped the GameCube controller, so it pops up the prompt. So maybe we should just, maybe whether there's a mapping or not, we should pop up a screen like this and say, hey, input from this controller, do you want to use it? If you say yes and there is a mapping, then we connect the controller. And if you say yes and there's not a mapping, then we would go to this screen, right? Maybe that would be better. But then each play session, you'd have to say, yes, I want to use my controller, right? So I don't know. I don't know what would be better there. Let's see. So the new thing we need to do is disconnect. Like if you disconnect the controller while you're binding it, we need to respond to that gracefully. So let's see. If device removed, background inputs. Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not sure how that's configured in SDL. Let me check. So I've got the game, and then I'll pop it to the front, and then I'll go back to VS Code and then do an input. Okay, it's not there by default, but I think that's a hint that we can just set, because I also set background inputs myself. SDL joystick background input. Yeah, there's a hint for it. Yeah, and what is the default value? Default value is false. Yeah, so we're just gonna set that as true. We could make that a menu option as well. Let's see, menu option for background gamepad events. So for now, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the input system, and well, actually what we could do, we can add a tweak in here. And is there an input section? No, there is not. Input, background, joystick, events. We'll set that to true. And then we'll come in here and I'll say set hint get tweak if get tweak input, what did I call it? False. Actually, we'll just do this. And then I think we can just cast it to an int, and I think that's allowed. Or not. Get tweak. La-di-da-di-da. Undeclared identifier. Oh, boo. So. Still not happy. Get tweak. Well, it's a bool, obviously. Oh, it has to be a string, is that right? Okay. That should work, or not. What is the actual... Oh, it's a C string. Oh, for heaven's sake. Okay, because I'm like, a string literal counts as a C string, right? Ooh, that's a good point, Rogren. You could skip the prompt if the game boots with the controller already connected. It only shows the pop-up if it detects an input while you're using another input method. That's smart, yeah. If a joystick's connected on boot, we could just skip it. I'm gonna write that down because that's smart. On boot, automatically connect any mapped controller. After boot, any new input on an unconnected controller should ask if you want to use it. That's a good point. Okay, so what is the problem? Is of type bool. Yeah, I don't care about that. Implicit conversion to C string. Really? It's probably fine. SDL better not be storing that anywhere, so. Okay, so now, in theory, so I'm moving around with the game focused, come over here, and it doesn't work. So what is the issue? If the tweak is on, if it's true, we should be setting it to true in here. So actually, that might be part of my problem. Or not. What the heck? What do you mean? I bet a bunch of these aren't even defined, but maybe they are. Hang on. Nope. Well. Okay. Where are these hints defined? Oh, cool. Oh, that's lovely. Are you serious? Why are they not defined? What? Okay, so what's the one that we were interested in? Oh, I've long lost that. Hang on. That's what it is. That sure looks the same to me, but whatever. That's slightly different. Okay. I really, if not me, then someone needs to just like take responsibility to actually get the NIM binding of SDL2 up to date and version it properly when new versions of SDL come out, because it's got weird gaps in it, seemingly. Let's see. Is it safe to assume that this game will work in Proton for the Steam Deck? I don't know yet. I haven't done any Steamworks anything so far. Later, like, I'm going to put this game on Steam, like that's my intention. And so when I start working on the integration stuff for that, if it needs to run in Proton, fine, but I'll probably just ship it directly for the Steam Deck. I don't have a Steam Deck yet, but at such time as I'm looking at shipping this game, I should have a Steam Deck and just have a direct build for it. So now if I'm backgrounded, yeah, okay, so good to go. That now works. Nice, nice. So now we've got background events. Okay, and I'm gonna put a to-do in here. To-do. This should be on the options screen. Handle the controller disconnects mid-binding. Right, that's what we were actually doing. So if we remove the joystick, if instance ID equals prompt instance ID, then need to reset all that stuff. Actually, is this enough currently? So if we have this controller, we're going to start mapping it. I unplug it. Sure didn't seem like anything happened to me. So that means, let's see. So depending on what state we're in, we need something that's like check disconnected or something. Say if if not gamepad should prompt. How does this work again? Right. Then debug controller was yanked. Say whoop. we'll do that. Wait a minute. Okay. Getting very messy for now. Safe syncing. Let's see. Don't worry about making a Linux native version because if it works in Proton, it works on Windows, so then you only have to maintain one build. That's actually quite nice. Plus, sometimes save syncing acts weird between Linux and Windows versions of games. Okay, I didn't know that. So we're going to add a new state to this for when the state disconnected. So if the controller disconnects, we'll go to a unique state for that. Okay. Okay, we're gonna fix this. There, you happy? What? But it is a const location. What are you talking about? Oh, this one. But it is a const location. What? Ugh. What the heck? What do you mean implicit conversion? There is no implicit conversion. What the heck? Do these need to be like, do they need to be a file scope maybe? Okay, I give up. That's just obnoxious. I don't know, man. Whatever. All right, let's see. So, blah de blah. So in the disconnected state, we're going to do the same maneuver that we do on the other prompts, basically. Which is this stuff. So we're going to say state none. Well, there is no no here. And none of this matters either. And that doesn't matter. So there's no no. And that doesn't happen. And this doesn't happen. We just resume the game instantaneously. And so we'll just resume the game there. And then I'll come down here to the drawing. The drawing part. And we'll grab this. And modify it. So say controller was disconnected. The controller was disconnected. And okay. Let's see what happens. Oh, that's cool, yeah. I've used Wine a lot on Linux, and I should just be able to take my Windows build and slap it on a Linux machine and try running it under Wine. But if there is a tool that does like some exhaustive check or something, that would be awesome. So let's say we want to do it. We'll do a couple bindings. We'll hold escape to cancel. We'll say restart. We'll do it again. We'll hold escape to cancel. We'll yank the controller. The controller was disconnected. Okay. So let's plug it back in. We'll do this again. We'll say yes. And we'll be mid binding and we'll yank the controller. It was disconnected. Okay. And now we will go and be in another screen and make sure it, okay. All right. So it seems like we do the right thing here. That's pretty cool. Nice, nice. So if it disconnects, we complain. Now what happens if it reconnects while we are in the middle of the thing? So what happens if we're disconnected and then I plug it back in, what will happen? Nothing, but then I assume, yeah, it just pops back up instantly. That's not amazing. So maybe if we're in the disconnect state, and we should check for plugging it back in. I think the mailman is here, which means I need to go and get the mail. Although I can probably just leave it, it doesn't matter. Unless they need me to sign. Let's see. So up here, we have this whole thing. We're gonna have to clean some of this crap up. So if we're in the disconnect state, we need to check for this. Okay, so okay, yes, and then we'll disconnect the controller. Plug it back in, nothing happens, press A. Oh, there it is. Disconnect the controller. All right. So this seems pretty reasonable in terms of like flow to me. So at this point, so we handle it if the controller is disconnected. Let's take a moment and do some code cleanup because that will be important. How are we doing here? Nothing crazy. Why is that deleted? Why are those deleted? I don't know. Gamepad mapping first version. All right. And I'm going to briefly go get my package off the steps, but I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. After I got the mail, I got important supplies. And by important supplies, I mean animal crackers. So, let's take a minute and clean up some of the tremendous amount of repeated code that there is in here. It's not that this file is long, because it's not, but after I get a tolerable enough version of this for today done, I'm probably not going to touch this for a while. And just whenever I feel like doing some art, I'll come to the art pass on it. And whenever I come back to it, I don't want to be confused by all my messy code. Oh. Okay. A bit of a... Let's see. Messy, messy, messy. So... So I'm just going to make one central place to do the state changes. That way I can make sure I set everything correctly each time. So we've got do any cleanup of old state. And then we have set up new state. Finally, update the state. So grab each of these. Badoop. All right. So when we go from state none to state prompt, we do all this stuff. That all seems fine to me. All right. Okay. Actually, You know what? Honestly, I'm going to come out and say that I think there are plenty of situations in game dev where it is perfectly legitimate to have a long chain of if-else statements. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Obviously, there are like situations where it's silly and you could make things a lot simpler. Like if you're saying if this value is 10 and if this value is 11 and if this value is 12, like, right, there are situations where it's very easy to make the code much more compact. And usually they're like toy examples. Typically in a real project, if you see some absurd if else chain, the person had a reason for doing it. Now maybe that reason's not good. Maybe they could have like drastically simplified things, right? But you will encounter situations where you end up having a bunch of branches because everything is like subtly different and there's not like an obvious pattern that you can just pull out in all cases. Um, it's also the case that, like, I don't know, for the example that you're probably referring to from Twitter, like, could you make that thing like a jump table instead? Maybe, yeah, probably could do that to like filter down the input to whatever the thing is. You could probably just make a dictionary for a lot of those things. Um, and that would be faster than the if else chain, right? It's also the case that like that example was running really infrequently and whatever. Personally, would I wanted to maintain that? Maybe not. But if the stuff in the snippet shown seemed like simple enough that like actually having this if else chain is pretty readable and easy to maintain with just like grepping around. Um, in my case, I probably would have done a dictionary for it just because that's how I tend to roll. Like in C, I'm using jump tables. In, Lua, I'm using dictionaries. In JS, I'm using dictionaries. Like, I'd probably be using a dictionary, would be my guess. But to each their own. What really matters is who's maintaining the code. If I'm maintaining the code, I'm probably going to prefer that it be a dictionary. So it'll probably be a dictionary. If the person maintaining the code prefers an if else statement, then unless all those branches makes it too slow to use, don't care. If it was me, it would nag at me knowing that all those checks were happening instead of just jumping in a dictionary, so I would just do the dictionary. But for somebody else, that obviously isn't the case, and it's not like you're not literally Hitler if you put a long chain of if else's in your game. Like, people are so dramatic on Twitter. Okay, so here we'll say self change state, state prompt. All this goes away. If we're going to state disconnected, then we'll do that, and that seems to be sufficient. So everywhere that we do this, all right. And then here we'll say self change state, state prompt, and all that stuff looks exactly the same to me. Easy peasy. All right. Whoops. Right. Okay. Right. State none. Sometimes going to state none, we ignore the thing, and sometimes we don't. To me, it just seems like long list of else if is giving yourself more work for no reason. Oh yeah, totally. In a lot of cases, that is very much true. Sometimes you end up in that place because there are a bunch of different, like subtle. You're effectively modeling a tree of possibilities, right? And sometimes it makes sense just because the problem that you're solving and the conditions that the problem has might be complicated and weird and nested, right? So your code can end up reflecting that. I do think in situations where it's like there's one value that you're switching on that's like an identifier or something, you should just make that a dictionary. Or if it's a case of like, even if you have 500 or, well, that's a bad, if you have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of things where it's like, there are these two things that I'm switching on, then maybe you just make like a little databasey kind of a thing or something, right? Like, I don't know. Do I usually end up writing an if else chain with like 100+ things in it? No, absolutely not. I don't. Um, can I see situations where that would be the simplest thing and it would be fine? Yeah. So we always want those things to happen. However, we don't always want um, we don't always want to ignore the controller, so we'll do that in this particular case. Okay. Actually, we always set the timer to 0, so I don't care. Okay. So if we're going into the prompt, we pause the game. If we're going out of the prompt, we unpause the game. If we are mapping, we don't do anything in particular because we set up everything here whenever we open the prompt. Which we should maybe do that when we go to mapping. I don't know. All right. It could also have accumulated over time. No, yeah, totally. Especially that example that people were whining about on Twitter. Like, that seems like the sort of thing that started out with maybe 5 or 10 things in it. And over time, they just added things on and it never became a problem, right? When they needed to maintain it, it was easy to search something by name. And if there was a performance problem from all the branching, they hadn't noticed it yet. Now, maybe somebody later will like be looking at a profile and be like, why is this one frame, a whole millisecond longer than all these other frames or whatever? And maybe they'll go and make it a dictionary, but I doubt it. Like, Lua is incredibly fast. Probably on computers that are capable of running the game, like it won't be an issue, would be my guess. But who knows? Maybe eventually it will become a problem and someone will notice and fix it. Like, I haven't played whatever game that's from, but it seems to be pretty popular. And granted, games can be popular without being very good, but my assumption would be that the game is quite nice. And part of being quite nice means that the game isn't laggy all the time or something that would indicate that it has a performance problem. Granted, lots of people like games that do have horrible performance problems and like ruin the game feel or whatever, but that's like a whole other conversation. Is that there for state mapping? That should be fine at all times, I think. Okay. All right. So let's see if I made any mistakes. Okay, regular input. Grab our unmapped controller. Would you like to use it? No. Everything is fine. It's ignored. Take it out. Put it back. All right. Yes, I would like to map it. We're in the mapper. Licking balloon knot. If I hit escape, it says, do you want to ignore this controller? If I hit yes, we go back to normal. Controller's ignored. If we'll map a button or two here. Hit escape. Restart the mapping. And we'll disconnect. The controller was disconnected. Okay. Would you like to map it? Yeah, sure. The controller was disconnected. The controller was reconnected. If I can actually plug it in. Would you like to use it? Yeah, totally. All right. So it seems like we're handling that right. Not bad. Not bad. So we've done a little bit of code cleanup. Just somewhat simplified this a wee bit. Not as much as we could, granted, but a little bit. I just like having all of this stuff in one place because see how little it actually is? Okay, so Just got rid of all the copy-pasted stuff for the most part. And it seems to be working right. So clean up. We removed a whole 2 lines of code from the program. But of course we have like this whole empty switch that I could like take out of here, right? So doesn't really matter. Oh, I still have coffee left. All right. Delicious coffee. Let's see, what is next on our list? Test with wireless controllers. Yeah, the real trick will be if I can get a wireless controller to actually freaking work. That's the real, especially on Windows. Like a PS4 controller on Mac OS just like works flawlessly out of the box. I can hardly get anything to work on Windows from any vendor, but that's just me. Hmm. I should probably get a controller with a rollerball at some point because I've never owned one and I don't know how to. I mean, should I support that? Should I support controllers with a rollerball? I need to support joysticks. I used to. I need to change it to actually support them again now with my new mapper. Um, but I don't know if I've ever, other than at an arcade, I don't think I've used a controller that has a rollerball on it. And I don't know if anybody still makes or buys those. This old rollerball mouse looks so amazing. Oh, that is beautiful. That is mine. I I'm not gonna buy the stupid mouse. I don't need it, but it's cool. Do people actually use what the heck? Do people use the rollerball nowadays? Is that like a thing that people use? Oh, they've combined the fidget toys. Anyway, hmm. Which we were talking about accessibility options earlier. Rollerballs might be on some of those controllers. I don't know. PlayStation Access, it's called. Wonder if these are on eBay. Oh, dude. I can get one of these on eBay for like 60 bucks. It's a bit pricey, but that's more accessible than I thought it would be. Mhm. I've seen people complain the Bluetooth sucks on Linux and it's amazing on Windows, and I'm here like, did you use the same Windows? Because it was awful for me. Yeah, that's basically my situation too. Like, I have multiple Windows machines. Like, I've got a pretty modern Windows 11 laptop, and then I have just like a classic tower PC, and neither of them have good Bluetooth controller like experience. Like, they're both awful for it. Um, just really, really obnoxious to use. So I always end up using a wired controller. Well, with regards to testing wireless controllers with this and like the disconnecting and stuff, I could go do that on my MacBook, but that wouldn't be on stream. So I'm trying to think what else to do for now. I suppose for the moment, I could go through here and experiment with mapping the remaining controllers I have. So here I'm mapping a third-party GameCube controller. And I don't have enough weird controllers, so this won't be a very representative sample of what the game will see out in the wild, right? But it is a sample, at the very least. So now I've mapped an Xbox controller, and I've mapped a GameCube control. Oh, that feels really nice with the GameCube layout. It's very pleasant. It feels like I'm using the Game Boy player or something. Alright. Let's get our classic 8-bit Do Pro 2 out here. Come on, you. I've plugged you in. Why don't you wake up? Is it going to connect? Is there a limit to how many controllers you can plug into a PC and get away with it? Oh, there we go. And it registers. Okay, where I'm using the X input switch mode, it comes in as that. Yeah, $60 is pretty standard for a controller. So let's map this and see how it goes. Is that a... Oh, it is a hat. Okay, I'm mistaken then, I guess. Maybe I was in direct input mode when it showed up as buttons. So we're mapping, and we're mapping. All right. So now I can play with my Pro 2, and it feels nice and nice. Cool. What's next? Which I was using the Pro 2 in wired mode. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug it, and it didn't disconnect. That's what's weird, right? Like, or did it? No, it did. Thank Jesus. Okay. Now we'll try it in direct input mode and see how that goes. Okay, so now it shows up as this. Same deal. I'm curious to see how the IDs and stuff will work. But since it shows up as a separate controller, what this should mean is that I can plug it in either mode and it will just work. So now I'm unplugging it again. I'm gonna switch over. I don't remember what, I know that S on here is switch. I don't remember what A is, like on the bottom of the 8-bit Do Pro 2. I don't know what, PS4 controller, okay, all right. Interesting. No issues so far. Yeah, that is one thing. Maybe if you're using the gamepad and your controller disconnects, we should we should pause the game or something. That way, if you are playing wirelessly and your battery dies, if playing with gamepad and it disconnects, pause the game. Which I think you get that for free on platforms like Switch, but on PC you certainly don't. So if I put this controller in Switch mode, will it show up at all on Windows? That is the question. It doesn't appear to be lighting up, so I'm going to guess no. Oh, it does show up. Okay. I just had to argue with it a little bit. Now, what's interesting is the D-pad that shows up as a hat on the other tree types actually shows up as buttons whenever it's in the switch mode. That's kind of neat. And so now we've got it. So now I can, in theory, unplug this, put it back in X input mode, plug it in, and it should just, whenever it connects, it should just work. If I can get it to connect again. It's kind of fiddly about doing wired mode, this controller. I have noticed. It connects very inconsistently. And I just have to like plug it and replug it until it finally decides to show up. Dude, come on. Oh, so the A mode, it showed up as a PS4 controller. Interestingly. Okay, there we go. Finally decided to reconnect. And it works. Yeah, it showed up as a DualShock for me as well. Alright, next on the list, we have the 8-bit do 02. And I have a very short cable for this, so this is going to be awkward. Alright. I also don't remember the key combinations for booting it in different modes, but we'll see. Okay. Yeah, so we've hit our first real problem. On the 8-bit do 0, the D-pad is actually an analog stick in terms of how it's reported. Even though it's a hat on the device, it's actually reported as an analog stick because it's made as a Switch controller, and most games will assume that you want to use an analog stick. So we'll have to actually do our analog stick mapping if we want to use that at all. Oh, you think A is supposed to be for Android? That would maybe make some sense. I don't know. Let's see. Do I have any other bizarre controllers? I don't think I do. At least not that without digging around for some more. So this is in a pretty tolerable state for the moment. I think the next time I work on it, I'll get set up to test with some wireless controllers and handle that gracefully. And we'll also look at doing the axis mapping. So for example, if I go check out an older branch, oh, right. If I go run an older branch of the game, then I can show you, well, one of these days when it's done building, I can show you. Come on, it's having to do a full recompile. Yippee dippy dippy. Okay. So here's the game. And if I come over here and I show the inputs, as you can see, I've got the keyboard over here, and then I have the mouse, and then I have a gamepad, and this is actually my Xbox controller that's connected. And you can see I do like a nice 8-directional mapping on the analog stick, and I have all of the I have all the things mapped here. This is actually, because this is an Xbox controller, it's actually mapped correctly using STL's game controller API, but none of my other controllers are mapped correctly. And I looked yesterday morning, I spent a lot of time looking at the game controller API and being like, well, I can make my own mapping and la-di-da. And I ultimately decided to just do what I've done instead and just make my own mapper, because it's simple and fast to just connect a controller, press a few buttons, you're done. And I also don't need to support some of the things that STL game controller needs to support, like the touchpad on a PlayStation controller and other weird stuff. So if I go back to my main branch here, oh, for heaven's sake. I go back here and I'll turn on the input map for this one too. And I will show you. So I no longer, because the analog stick was mapped on the game controller API, it was mapped for me for free, and then I could just like specify. Yeah, I mean, I don't usually play 2D games on a control stick. I will admit though, like if I play Link's Awakening 2019 on the Switch, I end up using the control stick sometimes. And honestly, occasionally for some of my controllers, the D-pad feels like crap, and so I'll use the control stick for this game. But so as you can see, the input map for a controller is much simplified on this version. It's just like SNES controls, right? And it also doesn't have the analog sticks. So I'm used to mapping analog sticks to 8-directional movement, so doing that won't be a problem. That's what the old system already did. I just need to make a nice part of the gamepad mapper where it's like, you know, do you want to map an analog stick? Yes or no. And then if you hit yes, it needs to be like, okay, you know, slowly move it up and down so I can read the values and figure out which axis you're manipulating and all this stuff, right? So I just need to make a thing for it, but I haven't so far. Any hootie. For now, I think I might call it for this stream. We've been in here for about 3 hours, and I think I did like an hour or something before that, before my stream randomly disconnected. But I appreciate folks hanging out with me while I work on this and giving input and stuff. It's really valuable to be able to get feedback live and hear things I might not have considered from people that happen to be watching. So thank you very much for being here. And I will see you guys on the next random Wizwag development stream. Thanks.